So Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, in his book series Covenant and Conversation, examines 4 key dimensions of the phrase Lech Lecha, the famous opening words of our Torah portion, this Shabbat, that we've already heard so much about. He highlights the following: that for Rashi, it means go for yourself, for our own benefit and for our own good. In the Midrash, it means go with yourself, extending our reach and our influence over not just one place, but many through our travels. And for the mystics, it means go to yourself, to take that journey to the root of our souls and become our most authentic selves. For Rabbi Sacks himself, it means go by yourself, to leave everything we've ever known behind and, in rising above our human limitations and imagination and human influences, worship a God who is singular and unique, just as we are singular and unique. In all cases, there is a journey, and the traveler stands at a crossroads and must determine the way forward. They must make choices, they must make sacrifices. Sometimes they are lonely, but the hope is that the adventure encourages us to grow in new and unexpected directions. It is with this in mind that I wanted to share about the journey that I took to Israel just over a week ago for the World Union for Progressive Judaism's Connections Conference, co-chaired by our very own McCarroll Sterling, who's also the past chair of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. So it was my second time returning to Israel since October 7th, and getting off that train in Jerusalem was like muscle memory. The station is new, but emerging onto Rehov Jaffa Street after 2 years living in the city in a previous life, my body and my brain knew instinctively which direction of the light rail to hop on and where to get off, and my feet taking me instinctively back to my old stomping grounds at Hebrew Union College's Jerusalem campus. Over the course of the 5 days I spent in Israel, along with Reform Jews from all over the world, we studied, we prayed, we even played a little as we gathered at Beit Shmuel, our headquarters in Jerusalem, where Hebrew Union College is also housed. I believe some 40-something countries were represented, and 40% of the attendees were aged 35 and under, which was a remarkable statistic. As the psalmist writes, and as we sing to open many of our worship services, Hine ma tov u'manayim, how good it was for us to be together and to dwell together, even if for a short time. With friends and colleagues new and old, we discussed how our common challenges affected our different communities and how we could learn from one another to combat them and bring the Jewish world just a little bit closer. It turns out the Jewish world is small indeed, and there was much to absorb. And in fact, I've spent much of the week since I've come home absorbing the experience. The primary insight that I took from this journey, and as I anticipate the road ahead, Rabbi K unknowingly segued into what I wanted to address about the road ahead being unexpected. We don't know what to expect right now, is that we, like our ancestors, are in our own Lech Lecha moment. We too find ourselves at a crossroads of who we are and who we want to become, what Lech Lecha will mean to us. And I'd like to explore 2 of those crossroads with you this morning. The first of 2 crossroads I wanted to look at are within Israeli society itself. Coming just days, thank God, after the return of the remaining 20 living hostages were released, the residual tension was palpable. And there was palpable relief too. The air felt lighter. Kama tov, how good to see far, far fewer signs greeting us at the airport, a reminder of the names and faces of those who had, to that point, been left behind. There was a notable spring in everyone's step and a definite wider smile on everyone's faces, such a stark contrast to how it felt 18 months ago. It was time to take a deep breath, To paint a picture of that lift in the overall mood, as my new friend and colleague, Rabbi Liz Hirsch, the CEO of Women of Reform Judaism, who's coming to visit us at Holy Blossom in March, she wrote in her blog on the WRJ website about her own experience at Connections. In Hostage Square, the yellow chairs are stacked neatly. The chairs are empty now, no longer a symbol of those who are missing, but as a reminder of how many have returned home. The entire country, suspended in the 7th of October for over 700 days, has finally exhaled. And end quote. However, there are still 11 families waiting for their deceased loved ones to be returned. The remaining hostages whose remains await a dignified burial are still hostages after all. And that pain is tangible too. As the refrain goes, Ad hechatuf ha'acharon, until the last hostage, the fight is not yet done. Moreover, there are many, many questions about the day after, as we've alluded to. So I'll illustrate this through a session from the day before Connections started, when clergy who were attending the conference were invited to a day seminar at our Reform community in Jaffa. We met with Amir Tibon, a preeminent journalist from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, which was heavily affected on October 7th. You might be somewhat familiar with his story. Trapped in his safe room with his wife and 2 very young daughters, Amir called his father, retired IDF General Noam Tibon. Noam raced towards the south of Israel and managed to rescue his entire family as well as others. His heroism has been recorded in Amir's book, The Gates of Gaza, and in a number of documentaries, including The Road Between Us. You may recall that film was mired in controversy at TIFF when it was cancelled and then reinstated, and I can feel Rabbi Kay's eyes on the back of my head. We are screening it here at Holy Blossom on December 3rd, save the date. Amir's take on the current situation and giving his own experience literally living through October 7 was enlightening. He spoke about the sense of fear and mistrust that has been sown as a result of the trauma following that Black Shabbat. Amir noted that to date, there's still been no formal state inquiry into the failures of intelligence and security which led to such catastrophe. He emphasized that this was highly unusual, given that Israel has previously established inquiries whilst the conflict was still ongoing, namely during the Yom Kippur War. 2 years on, for Amir, like many Israelis, this failure to investigate is concerning because 2 years is plenty of time to get your story straight and for the problem to fizzle out in the public eye. We can be reminded that these issues, which pierce at the heart of what it means to be a democracy, had been bubbling for a year before October 7th. The weekly rallies, after all, began as a response to protest the proposed judicial reforms the government had been trying to pass and are still trying to pass. October 7, Amir posited, was like the mouse that darted across the room when he was arguing with his daughters one time recently. The mouse is a distraction, and the mouse needs to be dealt with. But once the excitement is over, the argument is still like the elephant in the room. It's still there to resolve. Internally, the argument is also about how to ensure Israel remains a competitive country amidst its current demographic reality, in which the Shoresh Institute, which was recommended by Amir as a resource, highlights that the population of Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, is doubling every 25 years and on track to be half of the population of Israel by 2035. The question then becomes, if such a large proportion is not helping to shoulder the burden, for example, paying taxes or participating in military or national service, then who is? And what does this mean for social cohesion? Even since coming home, we've seen this play out on Jerusalem's streets, with a reported 200,000 ultra-Orthodox men blocking the entrances of the city this past Thursday to rail against being conscripted to the IDF. And by the way, this ended the World Zionist Congress meetings, which is where Rabbi Splansky is right now, and we kind of crossed over in the air. It ended these meetings one day early. Externally, Amir Tibon questions exactly how the global Jewish community ensures their voices continue to be heard and respected, or heard and respected at all. This is in the face of an Israeli government who only responds, in his view, to enormous pressure from the people that they want to hear it from. Reprimand from almost every world leader of an allied country, stratospherically high levels of anti-Semitism in almost every diaspora community, record sentiment of disengagement with Israel among diaspora Jews, and particularly in young adults, which is what made it so remarkable to have such a high proportion of them at the Connections Conference. None of that has particularly changed Netanyahu's course. But whether we like it or not, Trump did. And this brings us to the second crossroads I felt that we were at over the course of the Connections Conference. This is between Israel and the diaspora in terms of our relationship and how we talk about one another. And so it was with this in mind that myself and my friend and colleague, Rabbi Stacey Blank, who is the Director of Education and Leadership Development for the World Union, we co-led a session called Many Voices, One Table, Conversations on Israel. With her coming from an Israeli perspective and me from a diaspora angle, together we spoke about some of the ways that our work and our communities are navigating this tough time. We spoke about how some of our shared work with the World Union for Progressive Judaism, for example, the efforts to find some shared language around progressive Zionism, what were the values that we held in common that guide how we see the state of Israel and where we want it to go and what we want it to be due to our love and our care for it. We talked a lot, we were asked a lot of questions as well about the Solidarity mission in March 2024 that Rabbi Blink led and that I went on, and that was how we met. And we talked about why it felt important to be a part of it. I also shared about the amazing work that Canadian Reformed Jewry, including here at Holy Blossom, was doing to facilitate conversations about Israel in a nuanced, thoughtful, and engaged way. For example, I shared about our Israel Dialogues program and the new educational curriculum from our friends at Arts of Canada. I just noticed there was like a little card which tells you more about it in our communications center, as well as the heavy, heavy lifting that Holy Blossom did for the reform slate for the World Zionist Congress that I just mentioned. Perhaps most importantly, and this is the note that I'll end on, we spoke about the importance of, connections. Whether it was among the group of us from the Solidarity mission who were there and who are now a lifelong bonded cohort of leaders in various capacities in the WPJ, whether it was with each other as we came from all over the world to meet, to learn from, to share with, to pray with, hearing ideas and encountering people we might never have otherwise, whether it was with allies in our local communities, both Jewish and non-Jewish, who could help us build bridges and in joining our voices advocate in a more resonant way. It was, and I believe will continue to be, these connections which allow us to navigate the crossroads we find ourselves at and to not feel alone on the trepidatious journey ahead. Despite the unanswered questions and despite the unknowns, I can wholeheartedly share how glad I was to have had this opportunity and to have been back in Israel, and my gratitude to my colleagues and this amazing congregation. For the conference, absolutely, I am grateful, and for the moments of connection in between it and because of it. Sitting in the sunshine in the courtyard of Beit Shmuel for sessions, I was enjoying the warm weather while I had it. An extraordinary Kabbalat Shabbat service under the stars in that same courtyard led by my new friend, Rabbi Miriam Klimova. Standing on the balcony of Beit Shmuel overlooking the old city, that famous panorama for those who know or who can imagine it. Or even having dinner one night impromptu with my childhood rabbi from Australia, Alison Konya, who has known me for almost 30 years. And all of it a gift. Getting off that train in Jerusalem, it was like my feet had said, Lech Lecha, you've gone back to a place your heart knows. And returning from Jerusalem, I feel energized for our task ahead, which I feel is to say, Lech Lecha, where are we going now? Whichever form the journey ahead takes, my prayer is that it is one of growth, of courage, of collaboration, of optimism, and of course, connections. Shabbat Shalom.